Hello there, my name is Sixo, but more on that later, as now it's time for a brand new unboxing video. After all, what is it they say? Red Bull gives you wings, but don't mess with them or they'll give you the horn or something like that. Anyway, here's Generation Toy GT-11, and it's fair to say he's pretty unbelievable. Now before we begin, we're going to try something a little different today too, as throughout the video you'll see 3 quiz questions pop up at the bottom of the screen like this. Pretty fancy, eh? Well, all you need to do is answer all 3 correctly in the comments for today's video below, and then I'll select one person at random for a quick shout out in the next unboxing video. Simple! Right, let's get down to business, shall we? GT-11 Red Bull is the latest release from Generation Toy and heavily reimagines the classic Generation 1 Autobot character known as Sideswipe. The big twist here is that Sideswipe now has a beast mode instead of his iconic Lamborghini Countach, and transforms into a rather striking Red Bull in a clear nod to the logo for his more usual vehicular form. The design itself is taken from an unofficial book of artwork known as T-Beast by Kuramochi Zuken Group, and looks to be keeping quite close to the original sketches contained within. The book contains numerous other examples of well-known Transformers characters being given similar makeovers with beast forms, some more expected than others. In fact, Generation Toy have already brought us another design inspired by this source, with GT-10 being the more familiar Optimus Primal 8 mode. There's also plenty of chatter that they'll do more, with a silhouette for a take on a Tiger Hot Rod having already been unveiled. Last thing before we begin, today's video comes courtesy of TF Source, so I'll put a link to their site in the video description. The plan for today is to give you my first impressions, and I'll get a full photo review up on their blog ASAP. Okay, here's Generation Toy Red Bull in his box, and it's a very simple affair, just literally got a photo of the toy on the front, nothing really too remarkable there. And on the back you've got a warning label, so yeah. Well, that's actually the outer sleeve anyway, as the real box is just inside, so you've got to kind of slide it out like so, and it's just a sort of plain black thing. And this is weird because it's almost a bit like a shoebox. It kind of feels like it anyway. And then you've got some foam inside, the instructions just there. Let's take a look. Well, hey, there's the toy. Right, let's get it all out. More foam, some accessories, and the toy itself. Let's take a look. So yeah, pretty straightforward, but actually I don't mind the foam because you know, it does keep the toys safe, and in terms of repacking it's quite easy as well. And this is literally the entire contents of the box. So instructions, toy, little baggie of accessories. That's it. Job done. Of course, we'll take a look at the toy itself in just a second, but clearly that requires a bit of readjustment to get him looking right. The instructions look to be relatively straightforward, not too worried about that. We'll get to that soon. Oh, and hey, on the reverse is this kind of, I don't know, it's like a poster of the toy. If that's something that you really want on your bedroom wall, then I guess you can give it a go. I'll ask my wife, but I don't think she'll be into it. As for the accessories, well, you get 2 of these sort of silver pile drivers. If you're at all familiar with Sideswipe's Generation 1 design, maybe the Masterpiece Lambo or whatever else, you'll know that he uses these in the Generation 1 cartoon. And then pretty much every Sideswipe toy that homages Generation 1 since then has had to have them, of course. Also included is this second set of power drivers. You get 2, just like the silver ones. And well, this is because, of course, in that cartoon, nothing is consistent. And so there are different scenes. And in one scene, he has a set of power drivers that look kind of like this. And in another scene, he has ones that look like the silver ones, because why not? And then you've got this hand blaster, which is really quite fun with the old yeah, thing at the end here. I wonder how many jokes are going to be made today about this guy being horny. Well, at the moment, he looks a little bit more like a bull that's trying to pretend it's a car. So let's go ahead and get him adjusted up and posed into bull mode. So looks like those just fold down. I think you've got to rotate the feet from the looks of things. Doesn't tell you how to do any of this. I'm just looking at the picture and trying to approximate it as best I can. Seems to be some good articulation. We'll check that out as we go. And I'm quite looking forward to this one. Seems to be quite a bit of fun. There we we go, something like that anyway. So we'll check him out and we'll get him all posed up. Right, and there we go. A few seconds later, and he's all kind of, you know, shaped up and ready to be inspected in his beast mode. And I think it looks excellent, actually. Really, really like it. First impressions are that the colors are really nice. Really like the red. But actually, there's a lot more silver and white and everything else on there as well. So, you know, kind of in contrast to what might be a sort of more standard Sideswipe alt mode, you know, the Lamborghini. This is definitely not as kind of universally red as that, but it looks really good. So nice colors. Little, you know, kind of few paint applications going on, not too many, but we'll check those out in closer detail in just a second. Plastic feels okay. Joints feel all right. We'll make sure on that as we do, you know, check out some articulation. But overall, nice shape to him as well. So I think it looks pretty good. And I think that is certainly something quite creative, right? Like in a world where, you know, you're kind of seeing the same characters rehashed in the same designs again and again and again ad infinitum. You know, this is something a little bit different. And I have to say, as someone that actually really enjoys reviewing those same characters done in the same way, you know, I mean, I do. That is kind of, I do like that. At the same time, it's nice to have something different, for sure. If anything, this is immediately making me wonder what other classic ARC crew characters, you know, classic Autobots would transform into if they all had beast modes. I'm just kind of, you know, running through the roster and trying to imagine it. Almost kind of wondering if that had been what Beast Wars was when it was first released, if people would have kind of taken to it, you know, the old Generation 1 fans at the time, Truck Not Monkey, all of that kind of gubbins. If they'd have been a bit more on board with it, who can say? But it's fun to speculate. But for today, I think this guy is looking really, really very cool. As I say, it's very, very different interpretation of the character, but it works. And there are, just even from a cursory examination, some really cool details going on. So let's take a closer look. So the bull's face is excellent. I absolutely love it. I mean, you know, obviously quite stylized, very mechanical, but it looks superb. Really, just a lot of fun. A lot of fun. What else can you say? Nice piercing yellow eyes, decent sculpt, a couple of paint applications like just on the top here, so that looks good. Almost surprised to see that there isn't a nose ring or something like that, but there isn't, so there you go. And his mouth does move as well, just a little bit like that. Not a terrific amount. That's as far open as it goes actually, but you can just see that there's some painted silver teeth inside the mouth as well, so that's cool. And looks to be a decent bit of articulation on that head also. So yeah, it moves from side to side a little bit, not a terrific amount, but a little bit. And up and down, as you would kind of hope that it would. And that neck seems to have a lot of give in it, a lot of freedom of movement in that neck. And you can pose the horns as well, they do move around up and down. So yeah, I think it looks good. And the paint applications there, as I mentioned, the silver on the head look good. Similar with the paint applications on the side, the vents on the legs here look really cool. Come around to the side of the legs, you've got a little bit of gold just here, which is a nice touch. That looks great, nicely applied. And then the kind of detailing here, the silver panel detailing and stuff looks really superb too. And in terms of articulation on these front legs, you've got a little bit side to side, not too much actually, just like that. And you can go as far back and forward as you want, so that's something. And there is then obviously quite a lot of movement at these, the kind of knees, I guess you would say. Quite strange though is the hinge is on this silver piece here, this silver and red piece. So that's quite odd. You can see there that actually that whole piece is sort of separate. Don't know how I feel that works, to be honest. We'll check it out a bit more when we're getting him posed up, but that just seems quite a strange choice to me, particularly as there's a lot of wobbles side to side. Just there, it doesn't feel the most stable, so that's one to watch. And then there is also a little hinge just there as well. So there's quite, you know, there's a few decent hinges. I just think that's a bit of a strange choice. And then quite, you know, a lot of movement at this little foot as well, this little silver foot, because that's on a ball joint. Back legs are a similar story in terms of the paint. You know, you've got that gold again here, which again looks really cool. Nice silver, again decently applied. The paneling looks good. It's a good story. And again, quite a bit of movement, as much as you want, forward and back on those back legs. And then actually these ones hinge out really quite far. As to how natural that's going to look, we'll see. But you know, you do have a lot of movement there. Decent movement again at the knee, and there is also a hinge just in that top bit there. So you know, the back legs look pretty good. And again, little feet on a ball joint. Well, that's just the cutest little tail I ever did see. I mean, it's got this little kind of prongs on the back. That looks cool. And lots and lots of joints in the tail there, as you can see, running really all the way through it. So you can pose that tail, I mean, really however you want it. Do you know what I mean? Straight up, straight down, a lot of movement in the tail. Fair bit of robot mode stuff obvious here, but actually, given the nature of this design, it's really fine. I mean, it doesn't, you know, you can see it, it's there, but it doesn't detract at all because, I mean, it's a robotic bull, so what do you want? A few obvious hinges just here on the top, and these panels here, which I'm guessing are his feet, looks fairly obviously to be his feet. They don't really sit very kind of in a straight line. They don't really sit very parallel with each other. They kind of hinge in slightly. That maybe is just the way it's come out of the box, but I can't seem to adjust them out at all. So I'll check that out more in a minute, but it seems to be that's just the way it is. Some little molded detail on the back here, that looks cool. Coming around to the front, you've got this gun sort of positioned right in the middle of his back. It looks ace. Really, really like the gun a lot. And I think, you know, this gold paint on here, the little gold trim on this, these kind of little sort of raised sections, that's cool. Same inside there. There is a screw just in there as well, so you know that slightly detracts a little bit, but actually the gold kind of covers it, if anything, so that's good. Yeah, overall that looks really nice, that gun. The gun is on a hinge too, little ratchet. There we go. So actually quite a strong ratchet in there. I would just be careful with this little arm that the whole gun section is sitting on. It just unpegs like that. You can see it's on this little arm, and then you go ahead and peg it back in. And then it's got a hinge in this section, but I don't know, maybe just be careful. That's quite a strong ratchet. I'm unexpected to say. Initially I was like, oh, it doesn't even move, but actually you just need to give it a little click. But maybe just be careful with it. And then a bit of molded detailing just in the sort of section under the gun as well. So that looks cool. As for the underneath, that looks pretty tidy. Everything's stowed away nicely and all kind of collapsed together, so it's all good news. I will say that there's not much articulation actually in the body of the bull itself. So whilst you do obviously get movement at the legs and the tail and the head, the actual body is kind of a brick. So there's no kind of, you know, abdomen movement or anything like that. You can just tab these two robot mode feet, and then, you know, you could use that, I guess, for a bit of posing, but I don't think it's gonna look too good. Anyway, we can try it. Actually, I tell a lie, that untabbing that back section does give you a little kind of extra posability maybe. So yeah, it's not all bad overall. I mean, it's not the most posable thing. I am surprised actually that there's not more posability going on here, because although, you know, all of the legs do have articulation in them, particularly the back legs actually are, you know, a bit better. There's just not the range at these shoulder joints? Do you call them shoulder joints? Shoulder joints, that's what I'm going with. There's not really the range at these shoulder joints to flay outward to kind of give you a little bit more posability. And similar story with the head actually. I'm surprised it doesn't kind of turn side to side a little bit more than it does. You know, and that's whether that's tilting like that or actually just literally, you know, moving from side to side. The head is surprisingly static. So yeah, a little bit of limited range of movement in a couple of places, which is a shame. That said, he does look pretty terrific. I mean, as I mentioned already, it's a lot of fun. Love the design overall. He does look really cool. I think on a shelf this thing will look amazing. And so yeah, I'm pro. I like it. I like what they've done with it overall. And yeah, you know, it is a bit limited in terms of movement, but if you're willing to kind of untab bits, then, you know, like the back and maybe untab these legs slightly from the sides, you know, you get a little bit extra. Still not the greatest range. I would have liked more kind of posing options, but he looks good for what you get. And you can actually give him a bit of extra weaponry, because that hand blaster just slots into the side of his back cannon. Oh, don't press it on there, because that's quite surprisingly sharp actually. Just made a little dent in my thumb there. But yeah, there you go. You can actually just attach the handgun onto the side of the cannon. And there you go. And that just gives him that extra little bit of firepower in his bull mode. And I think it looks terrific. And yeah, just there in that kind of wide-legged stance, that's about as much as the front legs can splay outward. I do like that you've got obviously toes on these little feet on a ball joint. So that helps a lot with stability. Everything else, he does feel very stable. The joints feel good. Yeah, he looks good overall. I'm really getting into it. I mean, he may not be super posable, but he does look like one mean old bull, right? I mean, yeah, for display, That's very, very cool. And as I mentioned, if nothing else, I just love the creativity at play here. I mean, I'd love to see a whole lineup of these kind of toys. It would be really, really quite something. You know, even as a standalone, if you were kind of thinking, oh, where do I put this guy? There's still a lot to be said for it. So he looks great. But let's go ahead and we'll do some comparisons of him with a few other toys anyway. And perhaps the most obvious one to start with is, of course, with Masterpiece Sideswipe, Masterpiece Lambo. This is the MP12 Plus version. And yeah, there you go. I think they look really cool together, actually. I think if you are a big fan of this character, or maybe you're just a big fan of, you know, Lamborghinis or whatever, you just want to have, you know, because obviously the bull is the Lamborghini symbol. So maybe you just want to have that in a display somehow. I think this looks excellent. Looks really, really cool. Two very different interpretations on the same character, but I don't know, somehow putting them together, it works. It looks cool. I mean, look, far be it for me to tell you how to pose your toys, but this is absolutely how you should display them, right? Like if you're doing it any other way, you're missing out. That's all I'll say. Oh, sorry, you get one more shot of these two gorgeous toys together. How's that for you? Because, I don't know, I'm now kind of imagining how ace it would look to have a whole range of this style of like beast mode G1 toy, but with their classic car Masterpiece counterparts, right? Like if you had, I don't know, Sideswipe, Hound, Sunstreaker, Blue Streak, like all of them just like lined up in animal and car mode next to each other. That would look pretty sweet, right? Like it's not just me, that would look pretty sweet. Here he is with Beast Wars Black Arachnia. It's the Masterpiece version, I should clarify. I'm not in the business of, of getting leaked toys or anything like that. Yeah, here you go. I think that looks kind of cool. I mean, he's decent size for fitting in with the Beast Wars Masterpiece line. It gives you an idea anyway, if indeed that's where you would want to display him. I don't know, it's an option, certainly. It doesn't really fit in stylistically, but hey, why not? Here he is with Power of the Primes Tantrum. Something actually finally managed to convince me to decombine these guys again, the Power of the Primes Predacons from their Predaking mode. And you know what, I will defend that set to the hilt, but there's little doubt, isn't there here, that which one of these has the better bull mode? I think it's fair to say. As much as I do love those Power of the Prime Predacons, yeah, this is no contest. Here he is with MP44 Convoy, Optimus Prime, and yeah, they're obviously having a bit of fun with it here. He's the joints are not quite strong enough. I forgot to mention earlier, for him to do a standing pose just on his hind legs or whatever. But you can just kind of sit him on his bum, I guess, there, and he will hold pretty nicely, leading you to poses like this, I guess, if that's what you want to do. Nope, I've changed my mind. This is how you display them. Forget what I said before, this is it. This is the ultimate display. And here he is with Perfect Effect Psychro Knight, which is their take on Robots in Disguise Cryotech, a repaint of their Mega Dragon, which was a homage to Transmetal 2 Beast Wars Megatron. If you didn't follow any of that, then don't worry about it. It's a blue dragon. It's a really cool toy. One that I don't get to bring out too often, hence why I'm probably happy to show it off here. But actually, I think in terms of style and whatever else is going on, I think these two fits together surprisingly well, actually. This is a really stylized interpretation of the original Transmetal 2 design, anyway. And, much more kind of mechanical, and definitely a kind of very stylized interpretation. And in a bizarre way, they work really well together. They do fit. They've got a kind of similar look, that kind of, really panely, heavy panely look, mechanical animals. It works. I don't know. It works. I don't know what to tell it. It works. Anyway, let's take a look at transformation of this guy. It doesn't look to be too complicated, so fingers crossed. Let's go. And here's the robot mode, and transformation really wasn't too bad at all. It was yeah, a tiny bit fiddly at parts, but really, I mean, not complicated, if I'm honest. Everything tabs together quite nicely. There's a couple of really satisfying bits as well that I love, particularly the way that the chest opens up and then collapses back together. And again here, this tabs, that tabs, the back tabs, it all tabs very satisfyingly. Do you know what I mean? So when you kind of do solidify it and come together at the last minute, it's nice. Initially, you know, similar story with the legs. Initially, I thought that they were going to be a little bit more kind of loose, like open to suggestion in terms of where stuff was supposed to go, like the bull legs on the side, but actually it all tabs together pretty nicely. So yeah, overall it's a fun process. I feel like doing it a second time I'd be a little bit more prepared for what I'm supposed to do, because this is kind of a running theme of a lot of my video reviews at the moment, but the instructions are really just a bit pants at times, to be completely honest. I'm not going to drone on and on about it today, but yeah, they miss various little steps. I mean, at certain points, it's not even that they miss stuff, it's just that it's not at all obvious from the graphics. This bit in particular, you can just see here that the bit where you fold the bull head down into the chest, there are actually these two little small holes where the horns are supposed to go into, they slide into, and I just completely missed that on my first attempt. And then, you know, obviously you're trying to then close the chest on top of these horns and whatever else, and I guess I mention it because I would be careful, because you don't want to scratch the paint or anything like that. Fortunately, I spotted it before you know, I applied too much force or anything like that, but it's not obvious at all. I mean, just to be super clear, this is the bit that I'm talking about. You can see that little hole just down there. The horn literally folds down, and actually it helps the bull head fit into the right position. So I'm sure you will figure it out, but you just want to do that before you end up scratching the paint on those horns. And then once you've got it in place, actually the chest just locks in very nicely indeed. Equally, I'm sure that you saw that there was quite a bit of movement in the legs, the robot mode legs, including moving the bull legs around and all kinds to get them into position. This bit of instructions is basically all you get to say what you're supposed to do there, literally. Oh, that just folds down and magically ends up in the right place, look at that. So yeah, it leaves a lot for you to figure out for yourself, and that's fine, but it's just one to be aware of. Anyway, moving swiftly on and taking a look at this robot mode, because yeah, it's a thing of beauty. It looks great. I really, really love how it's come together. And there's a lot of things to appreciate in the design here. I actually think it's exceptionally clever, because you know immediately who this is. It's Sideswipe, right? You look at it, it's Sideswipe. It's G1 classic Sideswipe. And there's so much about this robot form, the way it comes together, that instantly recalls the classic, you know, car model, the animation model, whatever else. You know, you could almost think this turns into a car. There's very, very, very little indication that it's a bull. Very little. Even down to, you know, these little bits here, which are entirely reminiscent of the Takara Tomy Masterpiece. We'll do a comparison in a bit. You know, the way that this chest all locks together. I mean, you kind of have to look for the bull's head in there. Do you know what I mean? It is there, but and actually, it's, you know, fairly. I want to say prominent, but it's not hidden at all. But it's just really, really cool how the design kind of forms together and looks like the classic toy. I'm really impressed. I mean, sure, there are little cues, you know, like these bits on the sides of the arms, what have you, but you know, overall, it's just a great approximation. And I think even if that's not what you're after, then it's still just a great looking toy. Nice proportions on this guy, really nice sculpt, lovely detailing, and overall just a really kick-ass robot form. I mean, what else do you want? I mean, really, just look at it. It's just great. Really love it. Generation 2, I need to crack on and do the rest of the art crew now, because I'd love that. I'd absolutely love to see a whole line of these guys. Honestly, I just think it's really creative, really cool, very nice design. I mean, I really love that head sculpt too. It's nicely done. Love the little bull horns on top there. That's cool. But you know, it still looks like Sideswipe. It's great. Actually, the face sculpt is nice too. Little piercing blue eyes, little even tiny little silver paint application just on the head crest there. But yeah, it's cool. It's again, it's classic Generation 1 done with a twist, which I think is nice. You know, it's not overly slavish to the original source material or anything like that. It's updated, but done really well. As I say, I love how that chest comes together and just kind of reminds you of the classic kind of fold down Countach, bonnet sitting on his chest, the way it all kind of forms together. But you can still see the bullseyes just poking out slightly there. Plus there's some really attractive paint applications going on, like this molded detail here too. It looks great. Some decent paint applications on the abdomen section and on the crotch plate too, adding a bit of visual interest. That looks good. Kind of digging the design of these legs as well. I like the way this panel sort of folds down and over. Again, that feels very reminiscent, but still new with the design on it and everything, like this little painted piston here. You can see the underneath of the bull's feet just here, which is probably my kind of, at the moment, my main gripe. I mean, it's not huge at all. It's a small thing, but it's just the little obvious peg holes and the kind of, hollow detailing underneath the foot is a little bit too prominent for my taste. I think given that the underneath of those bull's feet were going to be on display, you need one tab on the side here for pegging in, one peg hole, sorry, for pegging in, but I think they could have filled that in or made it look a little bit better, needless to say, but still, it's fine, it's fine. Then you've got these little sections which I already mentioned, which are very reminiscent of the Masterpiece. That does fold in slightly like that, if that's what you prefer. And that's actually how they show it on the box art and what have you as well on the photography. So it's really up to you, but overall the legs look cool. It's only when you come around to the side view that you realise that actually he's got the old bull's legs just hanging off the side here, but they're really well hidden actually, considering that they are just right there. They kind of, because they fold in a little bit and what have you, they look good and they are nicely hidden, as I say. Like these vents too, that looks cool. His backpack has some nice detailing. That's the top of the bull mode, which comes down, and then obviously you've got this hinge for the gun arm. Now his shoulder-mounted cannon does look a little bit weird. I mean, I say that, it looks fine. It absolutely does look fine, but it's just, it's not tabbed in or anything like that. It's just held on that armature. So it does move around a lot. There's not really like a definitive position for it to go, so you just need to kind of fiddle around with it and find out where you're happy with it. I would have maybe preferred for it to, I don't know, just tab in here or something like that, but it is what it is. It does also feel like that this arm just doesn't quite move as much as I would want it to the side. I feel like I could have just done with this shoulder cannon just sitting slightly more to the right. And it just feels like this arm's not quite long enough or doesn't quite move in the way that I want it to. It's a little bit frustrating. It's not by any means a deal breaker, it's just one of those things. As I say, it does look fine, but yeah, that's just, what I would want. And again, I would reiterate, maybe just be a little bit careful with this, kind of pulling on the cannon too much and exerting a bit of pressure on this arm, because whilst it seems fine, it's not, the thickest thing in the world. In terms of articulation, you can look really far up, tiny bit down, it's on a hinge, and then there's a swivel as well, so side to side is no problem. Shoulders feel nice and tight, good swivel there, all the way around, and then you've got a hinge joint because of this piece, which should stay tabbed in. They only go up so far, and then there's no more than that, so maybe about 45 degrees at the shoulders. Bicep swivel, and you only get 90 degrees at the elbow. Okay, here's my first major bugbear. These hands are so loose. Look at that. Just flop around. That's really disappointing. Hate the hands, actually. Really don't like the hands. They're, I mean, in terms of articulation, they come out just like that. That's as much as you get. There is a little bit of thumb articulation as well, like so, but doesn't really give you much. And as I say, they're just kind of, with the wrist swivel or whatever, I've found that even just kind of moving them around, the wrists just kind of flop about, and so you're constantly readjusting them. I'd almost be, if I had a spare pair of hands or whatever else, I'd be really tempted to swap those out. But this makes up for it because no hip flaps. Way, always happy to see that. The whole thing just rotates up like that. So actually you get really, really decent articulation at the hips. Love it. Absolutely love it. And very good at the knee too, because you get an additional kind of 2 points. There's a little ratchet just in the knee there, as you probably heard, and it just gives you a bit more distance. Initially I thought all you were going to get is that 90, but then if you click it, you can go further. And there's an ankle tilt as well, a little bit further. Well, really good ankle tilt actually. If you just watch out for this little section there, if you just go past it, then you get quite a decent ankle tilt, and there is a bit of foot articulation. You can rock backwards like that, nothing going forward sadly, and then the toe moves as well. There is also a very decent waist swivel and ab crunch as well. And then of course, last thing to get him all posed up is the gun, which just goes into the hand like so. Close the fist. That's actually very easy to do. Again, shame that, I mean, this one's worse, I think. My God, look at that. Just flops around like anybody's business. That's a real oversight. Kind of kills it a bit for me, to be honest. But yeah, the gun does at least fit securely in the hand. All of which means that you get some really decent poses out of him. And really, it's all down to these legs, doing a lot of the heavy lifting, really kind of making him feel super posable. And they're just great. Love the legs. Absolutely big fan of the way that the hips move, the extra bend at the knees, the feet. It's good. It's really good design. The arms are less articulated just because of this elbow joint, really, because it only goes to 90. You know, that does impede you slightly. And then, of course, you've got the hands flopping around. But to be honest, I think with the hands, a little bit of super glue or something on those they're on little ball pegs inside the wrist. I think that'll sort it out just fine. They're just kind of not large enough. So I'm sure I'll sort that out later. I don't think it's a major problem, but it's obviously disappointing, but it can be fixed. But yeah, overall, he looks really stunning. There's just like a real kind of powerful look to him. It just, I don't know, there's this real sort of intensity and whatever else. It just feels good, looks good. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of it. Again, you know, if I saw more Generation 1 designs looking like this, I'd be a happy bunny for sure. But yeah, it's just something about the kind of design works really well. It feels very much like MP12. It's quite strange, actually. It's almost like, I mean, I've no doubt that whoever designed this was definitely looking at MP12 for sure. We'll do a comparison in just a minute. But there are, you know, numerous kind of similarities or things about this that really evoke a feeling of MP12 for sure. But yeah, it's just a very cool looking toy. I think if you are a big fan of this character, or, you know, beast modes, or just, I don't know, weird takes on classic Generation 1 characters, or just maybe cool toys in general, there is a lot to like about this guy. You know, he presents really well, transforms nicely, looks cool. What else to say? It's a fun toy. I'm a big fan. You know, I'm not going to talk about the hands again. That's the major flaw here. If you can get past that, or you're happy to fix that, wow, there's a lot to like. I hadn't even realized before looking at the instructions, but apparently there is a light up feature in this cannon as well. So that's what these front screws are for. You just take this panel off, put some batteries in, click this whole front section, and then it should light up. To be honest, I'm not interested. I'm not too worried about it. And, you know, light up features, stuff like that, I don't mind them, but they're just not really something that I need particularly. And I suppose if I'm being really honest, I would have rather just not had such visible screws if that made a difference. But, you know, hey ho. Then, of course, you've got the 2 sets of pile drivers. So in order to install those, you need to fold away the hands. So that just folds out the way. Hands go back inside there. Fold this bit's a bit fiddly actually, but yeah, there we go. Fold the bull leg back in, and then you take either set of pile drivers and just tab it in like so. And I mean, yeah, it looks pretty decent. And that's with pile driver set number 1. It's probably my preferred set. It's just kind of the one that I always kind of picture when I think of those pile drivers. And he's ready to fix your patio. And here's set number 2, the kind of flat style. They've got those little crosses in the end. They look decent too, do you know what I mean? I suppose I would question the need for 2 sets of pile drivers with this guy, but hey, I think it was it MP12 Plus that came with like 3 sets of pile drivers? So, you know what, they've been understated if anything. So anyway, overall, yeah, a lot to like. Really digging him. I think, you know, he's very posable, a lot of fun. You know, some little good gimmicks, you know, with the pile drivers and stuff. And yeah, I think it definitely feels like a quality purchase overall. So even as a one-off or whatever else, if you just like fun toys, it's cool. Right, well, we'll go ahead and do a few comparisons anyway. And firstly, here he is with TFC Toys ST Commander. And this guy is super cool. Love this toy. It's based on a piece of Dom Figueroa artwork depicting Optimus as the classic G.I. Joe toy, G.I. Joe Rolling Thunder. And I featured it the other day actually in my Machine Eagle review video as well, Fanswapping Machine Eagle. But I don't know, it's this for me has always been one of those kind of weird toys that is kind of a bit of a standalone. So I guess that's what made me think of this comparison today. And although, having said that, they've literally just announced TFC that they're doing a follow-up. They're doing a Megatron as well, a Dominator Megatron, also based on a piece of Dom Figueroa artwork. I cannot wait. I'm so excited to see that. It's going to be awesome. Anyway, for today, yeah, I don't know. If you have a collection of just kind of random weird bots, maybe it looks something like this, right? Like maybe you want to pair them up somehow. I don't know. Bull Sideswipe and G.I. Joe Optimus Prime. I don't know. I don't know why my head went there, but it did. Next up, it might be interesting to see him versus a few more Beast Wars Masterpieces. There you go. That's with Masterpiece Optimus Primal and Masterpiece Cheetor. And yeah, I mean, obviously he's about the same height because he's Masterpiece Carbot height generally, as we'll see, and therefore scales pretty well with these guys. Could be an interesting one if you are going to put him in a Beast Wars collection. Might be a bit random, but that's what it would look like. Now, I already saw these two together in Beast Mode, but here is Power of the Primes Tantrum, just to get that robot mode comparison as well. And obviously he's a little bit bigger, old Tantrum, but there you go. Gives you some idea. Two bulls together. Someone find them a China shop. And speaking of random comparisons, here she is back on camera. This is Oculamax Azalea Alternative, which I reviewed just yesterday, literally just yesterday. So there you go. Just thought I'd bring her back in as she was to hand, and hey, maybe it's a fun comparison. Two very different versions of different toys, you know, starting to branch out a little bit, aren't they, some of these third-party attempts, so which is good. And next, a couple of more Masterpiece toys. So firstly, we've got his brother, Masterpiece Sideswipe, and then we've got MP44 Convoy, or Optimus Prime if you prefer. And there we go, you can see how he looks. And yeah, as I say, he is about Carbot height, maybe actually a little bit taller than Sunstreaker, interestingly, which I wasn't expecting to see. But yeah, I think it's still a fun interpretation. It might even be that, you know, you're up for a bit of a random lineup and you fancy this as your Masterpiece-esque Sideswipe in your collection. I don't know. That would be a different way to go, but why not? Then we'll just go ahead and bring in the old classic. This is Generation 1 Sideswipe. In case you've never seen it, a lot of the classic Generation 1 toys, particularly the early ones, inherited from Diaclone like this one, are pretty small. And then actually we have the Action Master Sideswipe, only released in Europe. So if you've never seen it before and you're like, what on earth is that? Then yeah, it's a European exclusive. And then we'll just bring in, oops, randomly, Generation 2 Sideswipe as well. The original Generation 2 Sideswipe, not the Masterpiece or whatever else. And there you go, gives you a good indication. I should say, actually, for anybody wondering, that's the New Year Special G1 Sideswipe. It was a Takara Tomy Collector's Edition reissue, New Year Special, slightly different colors, different stickers. So if you're wondering about, you know, that, then that's what it is. But yeah, still interesting to see these guys lined up all together. I really love Sideswipe's design, no matter how he looks. So this is cool. But of course, we'd be remiss, wouldn't we, if we didn't line him up and have a look at him next to Takara Tomy Masterpiece MP12. This is actually MP12 Plus, but there you go. Now, as already kind of mentioned, I do feel like Red Bull borrows fairly heavily anyway from the Takara Tomy Masterpiece. It's not immediately obvious in some spaces, but you know, even things like this thigh design just there, I mean, it's not at all the same piece, do you know what I mean? But just those three lines, it's very reminiscent. Just the overall shape, the body shape, the proportions, the head sculpt really reminds me of MP12 as well. For some reason, again, it's not even like it's you know, a dead ringer. They are very different when you look at the details up close, but there's just something about it that feels very reminiscent of it. Maybe it's just the kind of shape and size and whatever else, but there are, you know, a lot of the kind of smaller details are there as well. I mentioned these little bits on the feet here. Obviously on MP12 Plus, they are black. On the original MP12, they are red. So yeah, so it's an interesting comparison to see the two together. One very, very stylized, one classic Generation 1. Really no right or wrong, whichever is good for your collection, but there you go. Interesting to see them side by side. So overall, there's a lot to like about this guy. As I already said, I mean, a couple of turn-offs, you know, like those wrists being so loose. I think it's probably fixable, but still, that's just bad. But you know what, otherwise, there is so much to like. I mean, just the general design is super cool. The bull mode is nice. Not as articulated as I thought it was going to be, but still you can get some good poses out of it. The transformation seems to be a lot of fun, and the robot mode is classic Sideswipe done with a real twist. So, you know what? I don't know if you have a home for something like this in your collection, but if you do and you're on the fence, I'm going to say it. It's a toot. So that's Generation Toy Red Bull. Now I'll put a link to TF Source's listing for this guy in the video description, and I'll be aiming to get a photo review up on their blog ASAP. Thanks again for watching, and maybe drop me a like if you enjoyed today's video, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel whilst you're at it. Also, don't forget to pop your guesses for today's quiz questions in the comments below, and I'll be putting up the correct answers and choosing a random shout out for the next unboxing. Quick final thank you to everyone who already supports me on Patreon. Details are coming up at the end of the video. Otherwise, that's it from me, so enjoy the rest of your day. TTFN.